Jefferson Robbins here with NCWLIFE TV. One man has been sheriff of Chelan County, elected in 2010, and repeatedly since then. He'd like a fourth term if the voters of Chelan County agree. I'm here with Brian Burnett. Thanks for joining us.
Good to be here, Jefferson.
So between 2010, when you were elected first, and this election now, when you're seeking your fourth term, how do you think your philosophy on leadership has changed? Have you developed different ideas for how to best manage your people?
When I first came on in 2011, it was set up that it was didn't have the undersheriff structure. They had a chief of administration, and they had 3 lieutenants that were civil service protected and not appointed and at-will employees. And I wanted to surround myself with a team that was completely loyal to myself and our philosophy and vision. And so we went in and we bargained away those lieutenant positions and brought in our appointed chief positions. And that's when the ball, I feel, really started rolling. And we've had to make some changes over the course of time. Maybe it wasn't a really good fit for that person, but I can say this, Jefferson, without a shadow of a doubt, and this isn't degrading or down talking anybody else that's been in those leadership positions in the past, is I really feel like the team that we have in place now is the best that the sheriff's office ever seen. And I really focus my time on keeping and maintaining, building relationships within our, outside of our agency. And when I say that, it means that could be interdepartments with the other elected officials, both in the county, to our other police agencies, and even around the state as we network and do different things as we run different programs.
The most recent example of growth that I can think of is the addition of the Behavioral Health Unit, which was established by the county and by vote of the commissioners is now a sheriff's subdivision. What do you see happening for that unit in the coming years?
It happened overnight. I mean, we went and presented it to the county commissioners and said we think that we need to move this forward and bring this something to the county. They actually voted, did a motion and voted right there that day. I think that was about a year ago, September. And then by the first of the year, before the first of the year, we had our program manager up and running, which is Anna Johnson. And I just give her phenomenal credit. She has amazing vision, and as she shares that vision, we bought onto that and said we're gonna go out and make this happen financially and logistically. And then our calls for service, contact numbers, went from 36 in January of 2022, and she just posted the numbers this morning. I saw them on a work email, that we hit I think it was 396 contacts in September. And that was just with 2. So we added a second person after the first of the year. Anna went out and helped us write a couple grants, received some money from the Washington Association of Sheriffs and Police Chiefs for wellness grants. And those wellness grants are specifically working for the aspect of trying to eliminate officer and first responder suicide. And so, in the past, when we're working with post-traumatic stress, you see this accumulation come up with officers that over the course of their career, they have so many critical incidents that they have this buildup. So what we want to do is help manage that stress level and have a program that's built to help them manage that along the way so they don't have any critical incidents themselves. And then after retirement, they're living healthy. And so we just onboarded our 3rd and 4th employees for the Behavioral Health Unit. And so those numbers that I just told you for September is actually without those 2 new employees. So the need is there, but with those 2 additional and adding to the 4th person is that we want to take this concept regionally. So now we're going to start serving all, obviously we serve Chelan County, but all of our local partners as well. So Douglas County and East Wenatchee. And I always tell people, behavioral health crisis incidents, dangerous drugs and crime, they don't know and they don't accept boundaries, jurisdictional boundaries. They don't care that the Columbia River is there. So they're going to cross those boundaries. So as a team regionally, I think we're going to be more impactful in doing this job.
People talk about crime and maybe they have a picture of how bad it is or what percentage it represents. Talk about crime in Chelan County. Do we have an issue here, a problem here that needs to be tackled over the next 4 years?
Oh, there's increasing concern, and a lot of that comes from a variety. It's not one single thing that you can say this is the reason that we're facing these concerns. I mean, we've got the border crisis, our U.S.-Mexico border, that opens that up, and we're seeing increased drug smuggling. We have some major numbers to basically support that. Legislative law changes, specifically in the 2021 session, that changed our drug enforcement. At the same time, there's some good laws that came out of Initiative 940 for de-escalation training, but it is expensive. And so as we do that, one is we're going to have to really increase the work we're doing in our regional drug task force. And we've done that. We actually just kind of designed the makeup of that with our local agencies. And one of the things on that we had in the past, Jefferson, is being the lead agency since 2004, is that we had the majority of the staff there. So we potentially had the commander, which is a middle management position, one of our chiefs, and then you have the sergeant that's assigned to the drug task force, and then you would have detectives from each agency. Well, over the course of time, we had loss of funding, and we had agencies leave. East Wenatchee and Douglas County had left in the past and left us with lower numbers. And so over the course of time, we were able to get East Wenatchee and Douglas County to come back. And then we had a concept. It was a brilliant concept that was actually brought on by East Wenatchee Police Chief Rick Johnson, who actually was my patrol chief for 4.5 years. But he had the concept of let's bring in the Wenatchee PROACT team, which is their street crime, gangs, drugs, and violence team, and let's incorporate and expand the mission and the vision of the Columbia River Drug Task Force. And so over a course of time and negotiation and talks, we were able to do that. And so we brought on their sergeant, their 2 PROACT team members, and we were able to remove one of our detectives and one of our sergeants for the Chelan County and actually save us some money right now and distribute those funds and use those in other places for Chelan County. But now we have a 6-member team, and then we also partner with the Department of Corrections that comes in and does some part-time work, and along with HSI, Homeland Security. They're a high-functioning, well-maintained team that's probably a little on the overworked side, but at the same time very proud and our regional partners to allow that to happen.
The crime rate in 2021, according to Washington Association of Sheriffs and Police Chiefs, was about 14.7 per 1,000 members of the Chelan County community, which was down about 34% from 2020. So if Chelan County is looking down the barrel of a crisis, of a storm as you've called it, how do we explain this decline then that happened year over year between 2020 and 2021?
Yeah, I think you're going to find out as 2022 numbers and 2023 numbers will be much different. I think we're coming out of the COVID crisis. One is people were staying home and we weren't doing the enforcement. It wasn't the proactive enforcement for most of 2020 and then part of 2021 as well. And then we got hit with the legislative reform that we had from the Washington state legislation, and it changed the way that we would be arresting. So your drug crimes, obviously, because now we're going off of drug referrals for the most part until you have a prior to referrals, and then there was no system set up statewide in the beginning to even track those referrals. So, and we're seeing that from our rehabilitation places that the referrals, self-referrals are down as well. But what we're seeing from the homelessness and the overdoses and different things, I mean, you can take the numbers. The numbers I'm going to go off of are easy to go off of these 2 stats. Stolen vehicles. In the state of Washington, prior to July of 2021, we were averaging about 2,000 stolen vehicles per month in the state of Washington. As soon as that reform went into place, and we're going to obtain this to mainly to the pursuit law changes, was that drastically upticked immediately and went to about 4,000 to 5,000 per month.
You've been vocal about the changes in legislation, and I think about the Blake decision by the Supreme Court now. That essentially says that a small amount of almost any drug remains legal for me to possess and carry in Washington state. You know, sheriffs aren't lawmakers. Mm-hmm. You can state your opinion, but you can't make the law. So at what point do we simply move forward and try to adapt to the law as it is now?
Well, I guess it's all what you want your community to be. And for us, it's about the quality of life. And we'll continue to talk about that because one is, as subject matter experts, your chiefs and your sheriffs, because they worked their careers up through law enforcement, and a lot of them have worked for the same agency. They know that. We get together and we dialogue through WASPIC, which is our policy advisor. In Chelan County in 2021, there was only 6 related fentanyl deaths in Chelan County, and I think we're at 22 or 25, most of those being fentanyl related, with a couple still pending toxology reports. That's a massive uptick, Jefferson, in what we're seeing, and we know that's to a combination of the influx of that fentanyl, that dangerous drug coming in from the southern border to our policy changes here in Washington State and how we can enforce that. But to answer your question, is at what point in time do we just move forward? I guess it's what are you willing to live with in the future? What are you willing to allow your children to have to be impacted by in the quality of life? And what the change I've seen in the last 23 to 24 years that I've been in law enforcement, I don't think is acceptable. And I think that we need to stand up and have a voice. And what happened was during the 2021 legislative session, specifically to that, is the sheriffs and the chiefs spoke up, and basically the legislators in control of the House and the Senate said, well, we really don't need you on this one, and we're going to move forward what we think is the best. And we said, please don't. We think these are the things that are going to happen, and tried to give them some influence there. And so I think it's our job, and not just our job, I think it's our duty to stand up and hold those legislators accountable and say, hey, let's work together in the future. I don't want to just badmouth you and try to make you feel bad about it. I want to hold you accountable, and I want to say, let's do something to change that. Let's not just leave it the way it is. Let's reverse some things. Let's do what we need to make better policy, because it's really about policy and how we can enforce the laws and move forward.
In 2010, when you ran the first time, you were vice president of the Chelan County Deputy Sheriff's Association. Now you're in a position to be challenged by the person who's president of that deputies association. You succeeded, I think, in large part with the support of many deputies. Where do you think most of your line deputies are now in terms of whom they support for sheriff?
Well, I guess if I had to go down and check off a list from the knowledge that I have, I would say it's probably 2 to 1. I think that I have a 60 to 70% following and approval rating. We have 10 sergeants. I have 8 of them on my website. It's full endorsements. I'm expecting, well, obviously I know that the numbers exist, so the supervisors group in itself will give me their endorsement.